welcome everyone to another session of the MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. This is 2023 December session, and just like that, a year went by. I cannot believe it. So this will be our last session for this year, but we intend to continue in 2024, so bear with us. Thank you everyone for joining us today. There's a number of people who have been joining lately as new members, which is great to see. So welcome everyone. And I'll run through a number of items to let you know how the Meetup group works. So as you see in my screen, we are using Teams. Everyone is used to that. You can use the chat to ask questions or make comments along the session. We will be asking Tom those questions when the moment comes for that. You are free to turn on your mic as well when you want to ask a question, or you can raise your hand. Before that, of course, raise your hand, and when you speak, you can either type or ask your question. We usually switch our videos, except for maybe me and Grania, or we tend to switch off our videos just to help with the internet connection, but I like to stay on. You can do that only after we start, but I like to leave my video on so to make company to the presenter, because I've been presenting online and it gets very lonely and very awkward when we don't see anyone and we are just talking to the wall. We don't have a sense of if people are really listening to us or not. But in the end, it's always nice to see everyone's faces. Feel free, if you are not shy, to turn on your video as well. So I will introduce our guest in just a minute or so, but there's a couple of announcements. The meeting, if you have trouble with the chat or anything, just try the old good trick. Go out and come back with the link. It usually helps. And our session is being recorded and will be posted later on our YouTube channel. If you don't consent with being recorded, then I suggest that you catch up with the recording later. The way it works is a few days after our session, we will send out an email to everyone who registered for this session, whether or not attending online. We will send out an email saying, here's the recording of the session, and here are any materials or information that the speaker may want to share with us. And yay, we're celebrating 4,000 members. We started 4 years ago, just a little over 4 years and a half or so ago, May 2019. We started with in-person sessions here in Toronto. This was before the COVID times. We were about 30 people in that first session. We went with live sessions for a while, and then with the pandemic, we went online, and from there the group grew, because now all of a sudden this is no longer just Toronto's Meetup group, is the world's Meetup group. We have presenters from all over the world, and I'm thankful for all of them, because we learn from them. In fact, one of the reasons that made me start this Meetup group was having learned with other presenters attending other community events. And there's always so much we learn from each other. Grateful for and to all of them. I know how difficult or how time consuming. I know about the effort that goes into preparing one session to present a topic. So, and all this is for free and in volunteering, done as a volunteering work from both the presenters and the organizers. So thank you to all the presenters from the past years. I tend to forget to introduce myself, because I think I sometimes kind of behave like being a star in the Excel world. I'm sorry for that. It's a very engaging community and we tend to know each other. And sometimes I get to the end of the meeting, I said, I didn't introduce myself. And there's a lot of new people coming in, and I'm not a star. So I'm not a celebrity, and I do want to introduce myself and Grania, who has been with us since our very first session and has become a member of the organizing team, and is one of the things that she does that is very helpful is to create the timestamps that go under the videos. So if you ever need to go back to one of the videos, and I have done that many times, you will find the information quicker because there's chapters been in the video description. And so my name is Celia Alves. I am an Excel lover, enthusiast. I've been working as an Excel business solutions developer since 2018, or before that, but as an independent contractor since 2018. I was awarded in 2020 by Microsoft as a most valuable professional, and it's an amazing journey. It has been since then. Having that award allows us to be in direct contact with the Microsoft Excel team, meaning that we have access to the development, to the features that are being developed, and we can provide feedback and participate in the development of these tools. So it's very interesting. Grania, do you want to say hello?
Hello. I enjoyed that very first meeting enough that I came back for however long it's been now. It's over 4 years. You're right. It's probably 4.5, and we've had a lot of really good sessions. So
Yeah,
yes, I agree with you. It's been a wonderful experience.
thank you.
So,
Thank you,
and
Grania. Yeah,
and
go
I
ahead.
love monitoring the chat because there's always so many wonderful comments. So
Yeah, so
anyway,
our chat is usually pretty active. Feel free to ask questions, make comments, and help each other. So sometimes the speaker does not even have the chance to answer questions because the members will answer the questions in the chat as the session goes. Okay, and so let's continue. Our next event in January, I did not put up the session yet. We will have a date soon. We have David Benaim coming in. The title is not definitive yet, but he will be talking about what has been new, what came new into Excel in 2023. David is very, very good at keeping track of all the new features when they are available in each one of the versions, and he will be talking about that. Going back tomorrow, it starts, is it tomorrow? 7th, I think it's tomorrow.
yes.
Or the day after. It's tomorrow. It's starting the Active Cell, an event organized by the Financial Modeling World Cup. It's in person in Las Vegas. I don't know if you still have the time to run and catch a flight to be there, but if you do, there's 10% off there that you can take advantage of. And there will be sessions, there will be conferences, and then there will be the final of the Financial Modeling World Cup. So it has run for a couple of months now, and the finals will be happening in Las Vegas. The next big event, Excel event, is the Global Excel Summit. It's on its 4th year, I believe. It's a very, very good event, not only to learn about all of what's going on with Excel, but also to connect with other people. It usually has a very nice networking feature built in. It has been happening online since the beginning, since the first session, because it started in 2020. Excuse me, or 2021. 2021 was the first session, I think. Yeah, and this year they will do a mix of in person in a few days and one day online. The first one was planned to happen in person in London, and it never happened because of the pandemic. But now they are going back to in person, but also continue with online. It's a very, very good event. If you want to attend, there's 10% off with code Celia10, and Grania will have the link there.
It's in the chat already.
And that's it. So there's different kinds of sessions, there's different kinds of tickets, there's even one free ticket. I'm not sure if there's still spots available for that one that you can check and see if anything interests you. And then you will receive this deck at the end. There's information about my newsletter that goes out once a month with news of what has been improved in Excel or what new features are available in Excel. If you are interested in keeping track of that, feel free to subscribe. I will also send information about events or books, anything I get to know about Excel that I think might be interesting for you, I will include in the newsletter. There's my YouTube channel, there's these meetups group YouTube channel, there's the blog. So there's a whole world of information that we can take advantage of. And so in Excel Consulting has been my consulting company that is sponsoring these events always. Oh, and there's my training, Snap Reports Champ is my.com is where you can find information about my training on how to automate your Excel recurring procedures. So every time, if you have a recurring procedure that you need to automate, we learn how to do that in that course. And enough talking. We are here to learn from Tom Hinkle. Tom became an MVP also this year, so congratulations, Tom. And I'm going to read my cheat sheet about Tom. I'm going to read his bio because I don't want to forget anything. So Tom has over 20 years of experience working with data and analytics in financial institutions. Early on in his career, Tom discovered Excel and how it was a fantastic vehicle to develop and distribute actionable business insights to clients. In addition to Excel, Tom is highly proficient in SQL, continuous improvement, and stakeholder engagement. Outside of data, Tom is a big skier. Is it how you say skier? Yes, water and snow, and loves spending time with his wife and 3 kids. If you looked at Tom's Spotify account, it would be some kind of 80s playlist, either rock or dance or new age, but all good. Yes, it is all good. Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for taking the time to prepare the session for us, to spend the time with us today. Please fill in the gaps, anything I may have forgotten, and let us know, show us what you have for us today. And you're muted.
All right, so I'm on now. Let me share my screen. And greetings, everybody. I'm Tom Hinkle. I won't go too much more into the depth into the bio. I think Celia did a really nice job. I'm setting a timer here because I have a lot of material, so I want to kind of get through my sections. But I have a lot of really cool stuff to show you guys today. And probably the coolest thing I'm going to show you is that there's actually an hour's worth of material on conditional formatting, because most people probably don't even think there's much to it. But I want to just kind of go through real quick what I'm going to cover so you guys get an expectation of what we're going to do in this session, and then we'll get right to it. So here's some of the other tools I'm good at, a little bit more for me. If you do want to reach out to me after this, if you have some questions, if we went over something kind of fast, LinkedIn is the best way to find me. So connect to me after LinkedIn. It'd be great to have a chat or go over something again that we didn't do. So conditional formatting to me, it's a tool to speed up exploration and highlight insights. It can be good for dashboards, but it really shines in doing analysis in meetings. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions people have is they like the conditional formatting just for their dashboards. And I'm going to show you some really cool things today that will hopefully you'll be able to take back and really show people how to do a lot more analysis with this tool. It'll become an actual tool, not just painting on the screen. So first, we're going to have a recap of the basics for those who've never done conditional formatting, kind of go over the basics of how to do it, data bars, icon sets, some colors. The next thing we're going to do is take those rules we've learned for conditional formatting, and we're going to put them on a tool. So for this one, every time I have to reorder something, the row is going to turn blue. If something is discontinued, it's going to be gray and striked out. So that's going to be kind of the first practical application. This one here, we're going to look at stacked rules in a checkbox. And there's a little surprise with this one, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. So we'll go on to here. Then here's where we really start getting interesting. Being able to apply conditional formatting to pivot tables and how it can stay right with the pivot table and help you analyze your data right there in the pivot so that you can draw insights quicker with the visualizations there. Along with that, we're going to do something called dynamic thresholds. And this is where you put conditional formatting on a pivot table, but you're able to, on the fly, change the values of that conditional formatting. So you can say, how many reds do we have if it's 50? Or how many do we have if it's 100 or 350? Without having to go back into the menus and redefine your rules. So this is probably my favorite thing. And obviously, unfortunately, I put it near the end. And the last thing, this is just if we have time. Just another way to look at this, we're going to see how to maybe put dynamic ranking onto a conditional formatting rule. So you can have a list of productivity for all these people and then have the conditional formatting rank the top and bottom people. And this is dynamic too, because you can type the values right there. And then just showing a heat map on a pivot table and how that looks. So that's kind of how the session is going to go. I might pause from time to time, see if there's any big questions. And Grani, you can tell me if there's anything pending right now.
No, there's no question. People are just introducing themselves. So
okay. Well, let me bounce over to Excel and we'll just get started. And you guys are all going to have a copy of this workbook exactly how it is now, so you can go test things. So again, just for the beginners, what conditional formatting is, it's a way that you can apply formatting, either cell backgrounds, font styles, font colors, pretty much anything you can think of. And that formatting can be reapplied without having to go back and color it again. So for this one, for my client bill rates, this first column here, I've got a threshold at 100. I know that because I put it there. So if I take this one and make it 95, it turns to red. That's kind of the basic premise of conditional formatting, is just that you put something on here that's going to respond to what the values are, and then you can draw insights out of it. So what we're going to do here, again, this is just kind of to review the basics. We've got client bill rates here, and then we've got a new bill rates, and this is done so I can show you a technique. Then we've got data bars and icon sets. So we are going to go through making all these really quickly. And I have set up a grid below that's completely blanked off so that we can step through this and how to do it. So we'll start with the easiest one first, just basic green and red rules. So I'm going to highlight all the cells I want to be formatted. Then on my home ribbon, I go to conditional formatting. And here's like all the basics when you get started. Highlight cells rules, greater than, less than, between, equal to. A lot of your basic arithmetic operators are there. So we're going to say everything greater than, and we're going to just say here, this is a quick one. Excel always takes its guess. It's guessing 112. So I'm going to say 100, greater than 100, and I'm going to just choose a green fill with dark green text. Click OK. So that's one formatting, and here's where you can apply multiple. So I'm going to go back and put the red on there. So I'm going to go to conditional formatting here, highlight cells rules where it's less than, and it's less than 100. And it's going to be a light red fill with a dark red text, and click OK. All right, so if we look at this, one of the things I like to do is have people guess what happened here. And since we're all kind of sitting on mute, you can see what happened. When I set up my rules initially, I didn't include 100. And this is something to think about in setting up your rules, all the parameters. So I said, turn it green if it's over 100 and turn it red if it's less than 100. So we need to include this value somewhere in our rules, and I'm going to include it with the green. So now I'm going to go to the menu to modify our rules that we're going to be in most of the session. So from conditional formatting, I can go back to manage rules. And here are the two rules I set up, and we'll be very familiar with these by the end of the class. So this red one here is the under 100, and the green one is over. So if I want to change that, I can do edit, or I can just double click it. And then it comes up to a little bit more intricate dialog box where I can have a lot more control over things. And the rule down here, here's some of our choices for the premise of the rule. Format all cells based on a value, format only cells that contain. That's the type of rule. And then down here, we want to format only cells where the cell value is greater than 100. Well, actually, we want it to be greater than or equal to. So say greater than or equal to 100. And then we're going to click OK. And here, if you have a lot of changes in conditional formatting, you can leave this box up with your rules and just hit apply to see what it looks like. And I'm going to do that because we are going to modify some more rules. Okay, so that just applied the fix there. Now 100 is part of our top 10. Well, now we've got another problem. I set up my rules and I only set them up for the items that had numbers in them, but I actually needed to go all the way down to all my products. And I wanted to fill in the new bill rates over here too. So instead of going out and taking those away and then re-highlighting, you can go right here to the applies to section. And you can put a name there, or you can apply, or you can say what cells it applies to. You can even just take it and highlight the whole thing and then re-highlight on your worksheet. And that will put what that rule applies to in play. Click my apply, and my reds come across. And if I want it to be the same as another rule, I can actually just copy that range too. I can do Control C and put it in there, Control V, hit apply. And I've applied that rule across all of my bill rates here. Okay, so another thing we're going to do before we move on to data bars, I'm going to go and edit the green. Green on green is good for default, but I want to have a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to go in here, double click it. And when you want to really get detailed with your formatting, you're going to go into the rule here and click the format button. And on the format button, you have all the formats you can do normally in Excel. All of your number formats, your font formats, your borders, and your fills. So I'm going to make this a little bit darker green. And I'm going to give the font a white color so it'll really stand out better. And I'll make it bold and click OK. And now I can click apply. And that applied to everywhere we had that rule. So again, this is kind of the basics where we're just getting used to how to do this. And for red, I can do the same thing. I can just go here, change the fill to a darker red, and then go back to the font, make it white.
Tom, we have two questions if it's convenient.
Oops.
Or you want to wait a while?
No, let's this is a good time for two questions.
Okay, so Aurora asks how to handle when a new records are added to a sheet and you want to extend the conditional formatting.
Okay, there's a couple tricks. One is you can use tables. Those work. Named ranges will work. But one of the things I do, this may not be good with a table, but I would always insert before the last row, because that will automatically extend ranges too. If you're on a table, it should just automatically copy it down. Okay.
Okay, and the next question is from Jose. He's asking, can we use conditional formatting in dynamic array formulas?
Yes.
Yes. Lovely.
And I don't have, it pretty much just applies to the evaluated value at the end. So whatever you use can be applied to that. And at the end, just maybe we'll keep in mind that if we have time at the end, we'll go ahead and do one of those. So the next thing we're going to do is data bars. And these are really nice because they can show kind of a proportionality across the field. And again, just referencing here is what we're going to look like at the end. So again, I'll go to my simple controls, go to data bars, come down here, and there we have it. But we have the numbers in there too. So there's a couple things I want to show you, a couple options on this rule that I want to show you. So I'll go here and do my conditional formatting, go to manage rules, and I just have the blue one. Now, before we change this data bar, what happened to our red and green rules? We don't see those anymore. So in this manage toolbox, conditional formatting toolbox, when you just click on it, it's going to show you all the rules that apply to the cells that you've highlighted. So right now it's showing formatting rules for the current selection. If I want to see all the conditionally formatting on my worksheet, I click this drop down and I can show everything on my worksheet. You can see others too, but so now I see every conditional formatting rule that I've put on this worksheet. And I could go in and modify any of those at any time. But for right now, I'm going to go back to current and just modify this data bar. So when I double click this, a couple of neat things we can do. We can always change the font to be a different color. By default, Excel is going to take a data bar at a contextual view in how it's going to orient it left to right or right to left. But if you'll see over here, the bar direction can be left to right or right to left. So I could go here, do my apply, and now my bar has come out right to left. Okay. So I'm gonna change that back. I want to go regular left to right. And the other thing I want to do is show the bar only. So now I won't show any numbers at all. Click apply. And so that's how I got rid of the numbers. Now, what if you wanted to show the numbers and the bar, but it was kind of crowded? So the last thing I'm going to show you is we'll show the numbers. Excel is going to make the width of the bar as wide as the longest value, but you can set the values yourself. So the biggest number here is 180. I can have the maximum, instead of being automatic, I can just type in a number and I could say 225. I might have prepared this before this session, so I know what number to put there. Click OK. And now what we did by putting that kind of that axis on ourselves is we have the number, but it's not overlapped with the bar either. So we can still see that, see the proportionality, and get the number. All right, let me go to the next rule, and then we're going to have to bounce over pretty quick. So now we're going to do an icon set. And this one is an icon set. I'm going to go down here to the red, yellow, and green. Come on here, and that's pretty good. But there's one problem with this. There's way too many dots here. Think in terms of conditional formatting. What you're trying to do is draw attention to things, to some of the outliers on the good side and some of the things that did really bad. So let's go in and modify this rule, manage rules, and go modify it. And by default, when you put icons on, Excel is going to do a percent. It's doing a third of them are going to be green. When everything's above 67%, it's going to be green. And then between 67 and 33, it's going to be yellow. And then it's going to be red when it's under 33. So the first thing we want to do is make these numbers. I want to see all of the items where my sales are less than 95. So I'm going to go here. First thing I have to do is go to change it from percent to a number and then say 95. And then I want to see it green when it's over 150. So I'll go here, number, and 150, and click OK. And everything under 95 is red, and everything over 150 is green. Let's do one more modification though, and this one's really key. When you use icon sets, we want to get rid of the yellow because that's kind of the middle ground. We don't need to see it. But all our sets have 3 values. So here's what you can do. After this is all set up, you have the value, you have the icon that every value is going to be right here. So here's green. I can change it to any other icon. But for yellow, I'm just going to say no cell icon. And I'm actually going to reduce that 95 down to 75 and click OK. So now this is a much more valuable use because now it draws us right into the top 2 and the bottom 2 items of that icon set. All right, well, I'm going to bounce over now because I've run out of time on that one. And we've got this inventory list, and what we want to do is make it so that when we need to reorder something, the row automatically turns blue and puts a flag there. And then when it's discontinued, it's going to get grayed out in the strike through. So if I come over here and I delete that yes, conditional formatting clears the row, and I know I can use that product. If I put a yes here that's discontinued, then it's going to exit out so I don't use it. Okay. So what we got here is we have a conditional formatting rule that uses a formula. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and blank this out so I can show you how to build this. And this will also show you how to clear your rules. So I've got this all highlighted. I can go to conditional formatting and clear all the rules. So clear rules from selected cells. They're gone. Okay. So we're going to use this for reorder column to base our conditional formatting rules on. And this is a complex formula, which we're not going to cover right now because that's not the topic. But this comes back basically checking if the quantity in stock is less than the reorder level, then we do want it to be blue and reorder it. So what we're going to do here is do conditional formatting, and we're going to go to manage rules, and we're going to make a rule from scratch. So what we're going to do here is go to here and go to use a formula to determine what cells to format. So in this formula, we're going to do equals, and then what is that? B7 equals 1. So when B7 equals 1, it's going to fire this rule. And what we want to do is we want to make it with a blue background, and that's it. Pretty simple one. And I'll click OK and apply. And that worked really nicely. It just formatted the first one. So let me get off this for a second. What row does it go down to? It goes down to 31. Okay. So if I go back to that rule now, it applies to B7. I needed to go to L31. So I can just type that in, or I can click it. Let me just highlight that. That'll be easier. So it's going to apply to this whole range. And click OK. But this isn't really what I want. It didn't highlight that whole row, and it highlighted this, but not the other items. So let's look at that rule and see why it did that. So here we said equals B7 equals 1. This, when you're in formulas in conditional formatting, relative and absolute rules apply as well. So we only want to check that column B. So what we need to do is put our $sign in front of B. And now it'll just check that first column for every row and put the formatting across. So we've taken the formatting from one column, but because we applied it all the way across the sheet, it's going to format that whole row the way we want it to. All right. The other thing we can do is we can, again, layer another rule, and we're going to go back up and do this for conditional formatting. We're going to do an icon set where we have the flags, and we'll go in and modify that flag rule. Double click that. Right now the icons are green, yellow, and red. I can flip those here too by doing reverse icon order. So the red is the first one. And then we're just going to say when the value, you always have to change it to number first. I'll just tell you that. When the value is equal to, greater than or equal to 1, we want it to be red. Otherwise, we don't want anything. So I'm going to take the flags off the other options and click OK. Oh, I have to adjust these. Greater than or equal to 31 and less than 31. Number 2 and click OK. Icon data ranges overlap.
I think it needs to be 0. So yeah.
There we go. See, even the presenter has to get their syntax right sometimes. And then the other thing we want to do is show icon only, so we just show the flag. And lastly, we'll apply it to that column B. And click apply, and then OK. So now we got the flags up there. So if a quantity in stock goes higher than the reorder level now, automatically clears that row and takes the flag off. Again, using this to give indicators to people to know that they need to do something. That's really kind of the whole basis for this. All right, let me pause, see if there's any questions before we move on to the next one.
No questions. There's been discussion on whether or not there's ever a use for percentage as opposed to number, and it seems that some people have found uses.
I think there's uses to both, to be quite honest. Doing it based on numbers is much more stable in a presentation. So that's why I choose to go that way with these.
And we have one more that just came in from, again, Aurora. If you prepare for somebody else, how can you present the rules in a user-friendly way without the user having to look at Rule Manager?
I hadn't thought about that. I think there, I would just say, I would just put, a little helper window up here, if you will, just to kind of give more of an English-based terminology to what the rules are. Because you're right, getting into that manage rules box, that's pretty technical and it's pretty industrial, if you will. So I would, if it were me, I would go, around the title and, maybe up here, I would say, I'd put some text in here that said, highlighted blue means that we need to reorder that part right now.
And there's also a question from Jose. If you open it on the file on another laptop, could we lose the conditional formatting?
No, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm probably 90% positive that all this conditional formatting is part of a cell. So it stays with that cell. It's not like some of the VBA and macros where you have to make sure that transfers or you link to it. Like this is part of the workbook. The one thing that could be different is if they are using themes, which are the color schemes of your Excel spreadsheet. And if you change the theme, then that might change the base color here. But I think that's the only thing I could think of that would do that.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me do a fun one real quick. Quickly, can anybody tell me what this is or draw some insights to it? In 5, 4, 3,
Like
2,
paint
1.
by the number or something?
And you're right, it is paint by the number.
Yeah.
Hey, it's paint by conditional
But you
formatting.
want to know what shape is going to show?
Right. It's paint by conditional formatting.
I'm betting on a Christmas tree.
Ah. You got it.
Asked,
So
sorry.
We're going to do two tricks. We're going to do two tricks here. And the other one that we're going to do is with the brand new checkbox item that we have, there's a way to toggle conditional formatting on and off too. So if I click that, there you go. All conditional formatting. Now we don't need a Christmas tree for conditional formatting, but it serves the purpose of this. And every rule is tied to a number. Okay.
That's cool.
So I'll just show you. I'm not going to rebuild this thing because I'm already a little behind, and I want to really get to the pivot tables. But I will show you a little bit because this was really quick to build. I made a little key for myself first as to what color, what each number was going to be. Okay, and then I went in. And oh, there's that current selection thing. Remember, it doesn't show me all the rules because I'm not in that cell, but I can just look at this whole worksheet. So what I did then is I basically built one rule, and I'm going to do this real quick too. I built one rule and then copied it and just changed the formatting for each one, the formatting and the formula. So let's just delete the last one. And if you ever want to delete a rule, this is how to do it. You just click on it and hit delete. So if I apply that, my yellow ribboning goes away. But if I want to put that back, the easiest thing to do here is duplicate it, double click in there. Oh, it went to the top. So I'll double click that. And where cell value is equal to 7, then I want it to be this yellow color. Click OK. Oops. And here's one. This wasn't oops when I was setting this up. Since I could have text in there in the numbers, I have to actually make the font yellow too. To go here and make that yellow so it doesn't display. And apply. Now, the yellow went up there, which is not really a huge deal at this point, but you can move these rules too. And this is kind of what we call rule stacking, is that one, applies, and then the next one applies, the next one applies, and the next one applies. So let's move this in the right order. And when you click on a rule, you got 2 arrows here, you can move them up and down. I'll move it down. And then for the checkbox, all I did here is that there's a formula that says when it's not D2, because that checkbox returns a true or a false. So when it's not true, then I want it to execute this rule where I make the font white, or I make the font black and the background white. But what really makes this rule work, let me click OK real quick. And I think there's something else going on here too, but there's a stop if true. So if you have a bunch of rules in here and you want it to stop and not evaluate anymore once this hits a true condition, then you click that and it will stop. And it won't do it in the conditional formatting below it. I think that's it for this. Okay, let me pause for questions on this then.
Yes, we have a few questions. So one was, do we have any limits on the number of rules or ranges bound for conditional formatting? That was from Ritvika.
I do not have any, but I will tell you, I've had sheets with 30 or 40 rules on them, and it hasn't been a problem. But sometimes if you make a rule and apply it to the entire column, sometimes when you get too many of the formulas and things going all the way down to row 1,000,000, even if they don't show up, if they end up being blank, that can bloat your workbook a little bit. I'm sure Celia can nod in agreement that sometimes when you have too many formatting options, it really can impact your workbook.
It can make your workbook slow if you have too many rules, or if you at least have rules applied to many rows, many cells. It can make it slow.
If I were to guess how many rules you have, I would say it's probably 255, because that's kind of one of the benchmark points where they cut things off. But I don't know. Sorry about that.
But I don't think anyone deserves to deal with 255 rules in
No.
a workbook or a spreadsheet.
All right. So any other questions on this?
Yes, we have one more. It's is it a good idea to turn on or off conditional formatting in reports? I'm not quite sure.
I think what you're getting into. No, this is a good question. I can let's do this. I think this is where you being an analyst really comes in, because you have to know what audience you're presenting to. And there's some people even today, and Mike and Celia and all of us have all talked about, we want to have things visual. We want to make charts. We want to have this. There's always those people that just want to see the table of numbers, and no amount of, convincing will do that. So I think this is really a judgment call on your project and your audience and who's looking at it. But that's where I think it's really neat to build in a checkbox that can turn it off just by clicking it. So you can show the people who are visual the Christmas tree, and then you can take the Christmas tree away for those that want to look at all the numbers.
Yeah, that's it for the moment. The other question was answered by the audience.
Okay, good. All right, so here is the fun part. Conditional formatting in a pivot table. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see it better. So I've shown a demonstration of what it looks like now. Unfortunately, cakes have a really skewed sales for this exercise. So I'm going to unfilter those, or I'm going to filter those out. And then we'll get a little bit better representation of the data in here. So any of the conditional formatting we've seen, you can put in a pivot table, but I'm going to show you some way. I'm going to first start showing you how to put this in here, and then a couple ways to make it look really sharp. So first thing I need to do is wipe out the existing formatting so it's not too easy for you guys. So I will go here, clear the rules from the entire sheet or from this pivot table. Okay, now I want to put data bars on here. So you only have to click one cell when you're in a pivot table to apply to the pivot. So I'll go here, do my data bars, go to my blue, click OK. Now it's blue. Do you see this little box that came up? And don't worry if you don't see it, because we can get this back another way. Once you do it in a pivot table, you're going to get this. I'm going to click that and look at this. Apply formatting rule for only the selected cell, or all cells showing total revenue, which is the value from our pivot table, or all cells showing total revenue for the day and the item. And if you look at the pivot table, the days are a secondary dimension in the E column, and then the item is the columns across the top. I haven't quite figured out how it picks which one to use, if it's going to use the top position or second, but most of the time I do the second one, where it just applies anywhere there's total revenue. So click OK, boom, it's there. Pivot table's done. And the really neat thing about this is everything works like a pivot table now. If I roll up queens, you see how there's no entries for queens right now? I have subtotals off. That's why. So if I roll up queens, I get that data bar on queens, but that's because I had the subtotals off on my pivot. If I did turn on subtotals, which I never do on pivot tables, show at the top of the group, then it's going to show those subtotals for each group and the dates, and the subtotals kind of destroy our visualization for the data. So that's why I usually don't like subtotals on. You can move it around. I can take items, put them over here. I can put date over here. And that pivot table is going to always evaluate the data bar based on the group that it's in. Then we can do a couple of the other things we talked about. We can take away, let me go back and modify again. And I'm going to pause for just a second for questions. So I'm going to go to my manage rules again and double click. And I can do everything I did out with the bars before. I can have them change context direction, so I can be right to left. Or I can have it go back the other way. I can change the formatting. I can make it show the bar only. Click OK. Now it just shows the bar across there. And this is important because it's going to apply to the next concept we do. The other thing, what's the other thing I want to show you guys here? Oh, so now that I'm on my pivot table managing rules, look at that top section. You can apply the rule to a certain particular cell or those pivot table options. All cells showing the total revenue values, or all cells showing total revenue, location, and city. Or location and day. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say location and day. So if I click OK, it comes back here, apply, and I can again keep messing with it as much as I want. I could take location off if I just want to see total sales for everything. It pops up with the pivot value in there. And I can put location back on. I can move it down below so it's a sub of cookies. All right, so I will pause for questions there.
I think
I
that
don't
there
think
was
there are any new ones.
I think I saw something before. I didn't take note of who was asking if it is possible to make the conditional formatting to be connected to a cell value.
Oh yeah, that's what we did kind of. We did the formula. You have the formula connected right to a cell, but actually we haven't done that yet. That's the last topic.
Okay.
That's the thresholding. So we'll do that next.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna do is my little trick for this, because I'm not wild about data bars by themselves, and I don't really like data bars and values. I just think it looks it never looks good. So I have a technique that I'm going to show you guys next that makes it look like this, where I have the number and have the data bar next to it on the right. The other difference I like that is because sometimes when you're over here, it's overcrowded, or if you're going in a different direction contextually, it can be tricky. So what I'm going to do here is show you how to do what I call double measures on a pivot. So the first thing I have to do is get rid of this so you can see how I'm starting. So I don't have conditional formatting on anything. And before I do, I have to make another cell. So I'm going to go here up to revenue, and I'm going to come down and drag it and make it a second value. And so this is sum of revenue. It's just the number. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the name, and I'm going to give it just a ... because it has to have a value to sit in the column, but it's really, we're going to use this value to be our data bar. I'll click OK there, and then my data bar on. What do I want that to apply to? All cells showing the ... value. So click that. And now, oops, what did I forget? I forgot to turn off my numbers on this rule. And OK. So now I kind of like this better myself. Everybody's got their own opinion and personal preference, but now I've got the number shown here like a pivot, and the data bar is right next to it. So you see exactly what is corresponding. There's no like having the data bar over here on the left side of the screen or way over. So this is a really good technique that I like when I'm using conditional formatting and pivot tables. All right. Got 15 minutes left, so let's do the thresholding, and then I think we'll open up to more questions.
Yeah, you still have time. We usually go up to 8 p.m. So
okay.
Because we have been interrupting you with questions along the way, so you still have like 30 minutes or 35 minutes. You're good. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because I really want you this thresholding one. This is the best trick I'm going to teach you today. Okay. And I want to walk through the whole thing.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I won't recreate this. So if you guys can see this pivot table, this pivot table again has icon sets, and it's got some in there, and it's got that double column like I like. Remember, so I put the icon right next to the number. I'm going to wipe out the rules since we have a little time. I'm going to build the conditional formatting rules from scratch so that they respond to the values in the cell, just like you were asking. So if I want it over 600, reduces the greens. And this is a really, really cool tool in a meeting where people are wanting to know what happens if I do that. Well, guess what? Let's just see what happens if you do that. So we can bring this down to 50 again, get the reds lower. Well, let's do it all together so it's on the recording too. I'm going to clear all the rules from this pivot table. No. And go back. And this won't take too long. It should take us under 5 minutes. I'll start here with the icon sets. And I know I want my red, green, and yellows. I know I want that to apply to my ... value. So now, see, this is what I was talking about earlier. Look how horrible this looks with an icon by every single number. And even if I have it dialed back a little, green is what, 500?
You clear the rule, so it's not attached to the cell yet.
Oh, that's right. See, I'm just like everybody else. So let's attach that to that cell then. So I'm going to go to, actually, I want to fix this up a little bit first. I want to get rid of a couple things. Manage rules. No, actually, we're going to do it all in the same place. So manage rules, I'm going to double click in here. And now I'm going to come down to the bottom. I'm going to change these to numbers. And check this out. When the value is, I got to reverse these actually. When the value is, oh, no, they were, it's great. Sometimes these are tricky to read. So it doesn't have to be green first. So when the value is greater than or equal to, instead of typing a value there, click the cell. That's it. Done. We've tied it to a cell on the worksheet. And now when the number is greater than or equal to that, we want it to be yellow. But remember, we don't want to show yellow. So we're going to get rid of that. Click OK. Dang it. I gotta not show the number. So now we've got a number tied to conditional formatting in our pivot table that we can change on the fly to do all kinds of what if analysis. Right. So questions.
Comments. That was too easy. So I think that people will be using that option in future. A lot of amazings. That's too easy, and it was so well explained. I don't see any questions. You, Celia?
No, I haven't seen any questions. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes
So
this kind of magic seems complicated, but all there was to select the cell. And people, well, you don't know, but now you know. So
I stumbled across this many years ago by accident. I highlighted a cell in the pivot table when I meant to highlight one over here, and that box came up saying, "Hey, do you want to apply to a pivot table?" I was like, that's very interesting. So
yes, that is very interesting.
yeah,
okay,
it's
if
good
there's no
because then
questions.
the pivot table grows and shrinks and it goes with it. So it's very, very useful. Yeah.
It's great. So I'll just go through the next couple and remember, and again, you guys are going to get this workbook exactly how I worked on it. So you can go and look at the rules, you can go change the rules, you can try to build the things as I did. You know, like I did in the basics, if I'm teaching or learning, a lot of times I'll duplicate the end result. So I always have a reference as to what I'm working towards. And that's a really good trick for learning this stuff. Okay. Another conditional formatting you can put on is a heat map, and we really didn't get into this too much. So let me put this on there. There are rules from selected cell from this pivot table.
Would you mind just zooming in a little bit?
Oh yeah,
please?
yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
So here, we did data bars, we did icon sets. We didn't do color scales yet. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do a green and yellow. But let's just say I messed up and I picked the wrong colors. I picked green and white. You have to decide what you want to be your high value. Here, green's going to be the high value. Here, white's going to be the high value. And that's based on your data and what you're trying to show, obviously. So I'll click that and then apply that to the entire pivot. And now I also put a slicer on here. So instead of having another row, I can just slice it up by Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens. It should change. I can't detect if it's changing, but it should. Yeah, oh yeah, there it is. There, I saw that number change. Colors. Take that off. But you can change the gradients too. So if I go to my manage rules on that one, this is a little tricky too, but here's where you can change the color gradient. So the first color is going to be white, but we want to change it to a yellow. Now it's yellow and it's sliding over to green, but I can change another color. I can make it red, I can make it whatever I wanted. Let's do blue just to make it look a little different. And actually I'll cheat. I'll do what I call Tableau colors. Those are the defaults for everything Tableau. And click OK. Now I've got a heat map. The darkest things are the biggest. And this is the lighter things are orange. This is probably about the ugliest contrast I've ever seen on a pivot table in my life. I didn't realize it was going to be that bad. So I might change that back real quick. We can check a couple other things. Go back to the green and then the yellow. And click OK. Now, the good thing about a heat map is it shows you where your highest and lowest values are, okay? The bad thing about a heat map is you may have goals and it may not meet those goals, okay? So maybe we only want to see things that are green if they've sold over 4,000 units, 4,000 to 5,000 units. Or let's just say we only want to see green if it's 5,000 units. So here in your rule, like we were with the data bar, we can set our minimums and maximums. So we can have max, instead of being the highest value, we can have the max be 500. And click OK. And when I click apply, the darkest greens should lighten up because they're no longer the highest values in our heat map. Oh, I went the other way. Go the other way. So why did that go like that? Lowest value. Huh. That should be the way that works. What if I put it at 200? Well, I don't know why it's not behaving the way.
Why you were trying to do to make it green only after 5,000, or if it reaches, what was the?
No, I wanted
goal?
3,000.
Oh, Jeff says you typed 500 instead of 5,000.
I just saw that.
Yes, okay.
Again, I designed this presentation to simulate exactly what happens in your daily jobs too. So pivot table is not immune from user error like anything else. So yeah, 5,000, that's what I want to show. So now everything's lighter, and you see we really didn't hit that goal, but the heat map still does show off some of these things. All right. Questions?
Seymour is asking, is there a method so that each row has its own scale without separately applying conditional formatting on each row?
Where each row has its own scale.
Yeah, so I think he's saying, can cakes be yellow to green and cookies be blue to orange or something? That's what I'm reading that to say. Or whether he's meaning cakes be the 5,000 and cookies be 1,000. I'm not sure whether he's saying the numbers or the colors.
I think the question is that where, and I've gone through that. I'm not sure if there's a solution for his question. So this heat map takes into consideration all the numbers in that range. And we just want to see the scale apply, consider these row numbers, and then consider again these row numbers without influencing the row above. So do the comparisons separated by rows, by those items.
Yes, Seymour saying that's correct, Celia.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I've never done that on a pivot table. And my suspicion is you won't be able to do that on a pivot because, like I said, it's like Celia said, it's looking at everything that has the total revenue value there. However, this was a different session, but with Excel's dynamic arrays and formulas, there's a lot of people now who are moving away from a pivot table and just making a table with formulas in it. And if you did that, then your colors and your ranges and everything could be different for each person. It could look exactly like the pivot table, but it wouldn't be a pivot table. If that makes sense.
Okay. Daryl is asking, does formatting work differently when the pivot table layout is tabular form?
Let's check it out. I don't think it will because it looks like I think it only applies to the values, and the tabular be different. So things here.
Ah, it's something.
You know what? No, it's all applying the same. All right. See, I don't think the tabular does a whole lot different because it's not coloring. It's not coloring all our dimensions. It's only coloring the values.
Okay.
All right, another question.
Another question is from a guest. So it says, does the accessibility checker, or perhaps an add-in, help with checking gradients or heat maps, especially when sharing with colleagues using screen readers or vision challenges?
I have not tried that accessibility checker. I need to start getting that in my normal routine too. But if any of the other people know if that works, feel free to jump in there too.
I've not used it.
I have not used it, but there's the accessibility investigate there at the bottom. There's no need for an add-in currently on the most recent versions of Excel. It's not always helpful from what I've seen, but I don't use it often. So, but it does suggest a couple of things. Hard to read text contrast.
Oh,
so it takes you to where it was. It takes you to where
it's a different sheet.
Yeah.
This does look like a good tool. This will have to be we'll have to do another meetup on accessibility tool.
I guess. Yeah.
That's it for questions at the moment.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it for me then. unless anybody wants to go over one of the things we did again, but again, this is going to be sent out to everybody. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll go back over some of the stuff if you've forgotten how to do something or need to get a little refresher going. And the last thing I'll leave you is to just again remember, in starting out, I think most people think of conditional formatting as just a way to quickly format a dashboard, but for me, it can really become a really useful analysis tool, especially when working with a group of people. The big numbers just always jump out more with an indicator.
Aaron is asking if you can go over the inventory tab again.
Okay.
And we have a lot of people saying excellent session and thank you, great tips. So seems to have gone over well.
Awesome. Feel free to email me or DM me those tips so I can use them as testimonials later too. Okay, so why don't we do this? Celia, why don't do you want to do the official close and then we'll go to work the inventory tab so that people who don't want to see it can pop off?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, did you have anything prepared on dynamic arrays or not really?
I did not have anything prepared for a
Okay,
dynamic array.
because some people were asking me about that.
Let's try that. Let's try to do something really quick here. But again, it's if I can't get to work right away, I'm not going to necessarily worry about that.
It's a very new thing, so. But my guessing is that we need to set up the rule, setting the range from to where we think the dynamic array can grow to. There's
you know what I want to do instead of burning a bunch of time here. I'll put another tab in this workbook before we send it out.
Okay,
that has an example of dynamic array in my conclusion.
Idea. Okay, so are there any other questions, any comments that anyone wants to do before we stop the recording and end the session? There's people saying thank you.
So unless we have somebody pop one in.
Yeah. Tom, if you want to share again your contact information in case someone came in late and wants to know where to find you, where to connect with you, that would be great as well.
And I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, just look me up under Tom Hinkle on LinkedIn. That's the best way to contact me right now. I'm really active on there most of the time.
And the spreadsheet, some people are asking, we will send an email in a couple of days after we close the recording to YouTube. We will send out an email to everyone who registered for the session saying, here's the link for the recording. Here are the files that the presenters shared with us. So just keep an eye on your inbox. Maybe around the weekend or so, you should get that email.
And there's a link to the Meetup channel on YouTube. I just put that in for anyone that needs it.
Okay, so before we go over and repeat the exercise, Tom, thank you very much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us, to prepare the session, to be here with us. And congratulations and thank you also to everyone who attended live today. Because when we make these, when we take these times, these little sets of times, my English is failing on me now. When we set aside this time for us to learn, it can make a difference. I've learned many interesting things over the years just by attending meetup sessions and other community events. So thank you and congratulations for making that time for yourself and for us as well to be here together as a community learning from each other. So thank you very much. We will be coming after the new year. Happy holidays to everyone. And I hope to see you then. I will be stopping the recording now.